Welcome to Nice Ashes. I'm Mike.
And I'm Nate. Are you talking, Mike? Because I can't hear you.
No, I am not. I was waiting for you to ask me what we were smoking today.
Oh, okay. Well, I asked you last time. Or did you ask me last time?
I asked you, yeah.
Sorry.
The second guy asked the first guy what we're smoking. That's the
okay.
dealio here. That's the dealio here.
Okay. This is all new to me. This is our 30th episode of Season 2. And what are we smoking for episode 30, Mike?
We are smoking the H. Upmann The Banker. Which the cigar itself has a lot of veins and it's a little rough looking. I'm not a big fan, but the wrapper looks really good. I mean, the wrapper, the actual packaging looks good. It's just the cigar is looking a little rough. It might have been my humidor that did it. I don't know. Nate's look fine, right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a little where you light it at the end. The tip is kind of squished, but it doesn't look any more rough than any of the other cigars. I guess maybe it's just the leaf that they did for the wrapper on yours. I don't know. Or the case.
Yeah, it looks a little rugged, if you know what I mean. Like it's not. Yeah,
but I didn't look at this and think it was an oversized cheroot. If that's what you're getting at.
I'm getting cheroot level veins on mine. Not like that's a little exaggerated, but I mean the band looks good, but
yeah,
not that affects how it tastes, but it all matters. Now, are you burning the foot on these cigars before you light them?
What does that mean?
So, I don't always do it, but lately I've been taking my lighter and burning the end, heating it up, and getting it on fire a little bit before I draw through it. It kind of makes that lighting process where I'm actually sucking air through it faster. Okay. It almost makes it more even when you first start it, you know?
I don't know if I've been fully doing it. I've been doing kind of like a variation of that where I'll light and inhale through, and then I'll kind of like not inhale through and kind of torch the end a bit, and then inhale and torch. So
sure, I don't think it really makes a difference, but you know.
No, I mean, I know when we were in episode 1, I had a buddy over, and we were several episodes into our first season. And he was like giving me shit because my cigars weren't burning evenly. And he's like, well, you're not doing this and doing that. But I think for all the cigars I've been smoking this season, the burns have been even. So whatever I'm doing appears to be fine. So
right. I haven't had any major issues.
Yeah.
I guess.
And I'm pairing this with a Founders Centennial IPA.
Oh, nice. I'm drinking water again.
Water is life, man. Water is life.
Water is life. I had a lot of coffee yesterday, so I'm like watering it up.
Yep, got to replenish the fluids.
It's related to our topic today, but I went to the Little Falls Craft Fair, which is 100,000 people go to apparently, and it was the 50th anniversary this year.
Oh, okay.
And we walked 5.5 miles at the Little Falls Craft Fair.
Oh, God.
Walking around and seeing the various vendors, but they have a roaster called Reality Roasters in Little Falls, and they have wonderful coffee. And of course, they don't normally serve coffee. You can only buy the beans, but during the Little Falls Craft Fair, they make coffee. So I was drinking coffee all day there.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Well, our topic for this episode is going to be a little more free form, but we thought it would be fun to talk about bookstores and maybe favorite bookstores or anytime I'm in a new town or something, or even if the town I'm in and a new bookstore pops up, I kind of always want to go. Like, I just love bookstores. Typically not a huge fan of bookstores where they want you to pay the full price on the back of the thing. So I tend to gravitate more towards the used bookstores or the secondhand bookstores. But that'll come up more later, I'm sure, in the episode.
As do I. I'm a big fan of the small town used bookstore.
Yes. So we were going up to meet Sarah's parents at the halfway point, and we decided to take kind of a meandering route through Buffalo, Minnesota, and they've got a bookstore there, and they've got a ton of antique stores too. But the bookstore is fairly small. They've got a little like cafe, coffee shop type of thing in the back. And I generally gravitate towards like the sci-fi sections because there's always like weird oddities of sci-fi authors you can find, or I've had pretty good luck with the little short story sci-fi compendiums or whatever they are. Because you get to try a bunch of different styles of different writers in a short story. You have to be a good writer to do a short story, I think, right? Like to make it compelling enough to remember because it's so short.
Yeah, I think so.
And then I do like the nonfiction stuff. Like I like checking out different biographies of people. And there's a website called, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's like Best Presidential Biographies. And this guy or whomever runs it has read biographies on all of the presidents, and he will rank them. Which one is best, and he'll do like which one he thinks gives the best overall picture, which one's written the best, which one is the most interesting, even if it doesn't cover the entirety of the president's life, and he'll give you all that kind of feedback. So that's been really phenomenal for me to kind of, somebody's already done the stuff, so there's nothing worse than picking up like a nonfiction book about a topic you're interested in and having it being like boring as hell.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I found lately is that they will be on a topic that's interesting, but then the style of the writing will be poppy and 21st century like, and they'll have jokes like it's a Marvel movie instead of a book about a serious historical topic.
Yeah. That reminds me. There was one. Oh yeah, I read one. Let me pull it up here because I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it. We'll just say that. So it's called Indian Givers. And it's How the Indians of the Americas Transformed the World by Jack Weatherford. And people seem to like it. It's got like an average of 4. And I gave it a 2. And because the first like 4 chapters were how, he was trying to make that the Native Americans who were forced into slavery and mining precious metals out of South American mountains were somehow contributing. Not like contributing. Like, of course they were contributing, but like it was their idea to do it, right? It's called Indian Givers, not Indian exploitation. You know what I mean? So like that kind of didn't sit well with me. And he had a couple chapters about, there were no tomatoes or potatoes or corn, maize, anywhere else in the world. And so all of these different vegetables and produce things like took off. And can you imagine like the food in Italy without tomatoes? You know what I mean? So and there were no potatoes in Russia. So thank you, vodka, I guess. That stuff was neat. But then so he did a couple chapters on how bad the colonizers were. And then he did a couple chapters on like vegetables. And then he started doing like, well, I drove down into this area, and it started being like anecdotal stories of his like research. And I'm like, no, dude. Like, no, I'm not reading this book to find out what you did to do your research,
Sure. That's crazy. Well, it's crazy that people liked it. That's the weird part, know?
Maybe people like it because he's not like the stuffy historian, but he's not a terribly interesting fellow, in my opinion, from how he wrote his books. So there's that. And then I read, there's one like the 1918 Great Influenza, and it's all about the Great Influenza of 1918. And it was interesting because they kind of did masks and stuff, and they were trying to do stuff because I think that was right when they started discovering that like germs were a thing, And it was moderately interesting, but it wasn't written in a way that resonates with me. I'm not going to say it wasn't well written. I'm just saying it wasn't a writing style that resonated with me. So it was very, very tough. It was a slog to get through. But then I read one called Cattle Kingdom, all about cattle industry in America and how they would ship them up to the Chicago slaughterhouses and all this stuff because they didn't have refrigerated cars. And that one was like very fascinating, and I loved how it was written. It was a page turner, like all about the cattle industry. So it kind of goes to show that the writing style maybe is sometimes more important than the subject matter.
Well, and sometimes, so I'm looking at my list here. I just finished American Witches, and before that, I completed Napoleon's Hemorrhoids. And Napoleon's Hemorrhoids is like fun little short stories about historical oddities. Okay. And you expect that to be funny and poppy, right?
Yeah.
And it was funny and poppy, and it was interesting. It was like the story behind the guy that invented bingo. And he didn't really invent it, but he found a carnival game and he popularized it, and all these fun little things. But American Witches was supposed to be about the history of like witch burning in the United States.
Yeah.
And the tone was not great. It was like, oh, funny, ha ha ha, like pop, pop, pop. This is going to be cool and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we're talking about witch trials.
People are burning to death on a stake.
Right, exactly. It's like she's trying to make little jokes about how dumb the colonists were or whatever. And it's like, this is not a topic. The information was good.
Yeah.
And it got better as it went on, and it got more towards the modern era, because you can make fun of people who believe in the Blair Witch.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And she did an interview with the mayor of the town that the Blair Witch Project was set in and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't need to be making funny jokes about women that were burned alive trying to cross to the New World on a ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the tone, like the same tone, but you don't expect it some places and you do others, you know?
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing is I enjoy humor a lot, but there's, a time and a place. And if it's all humor all the time, it's hard to get any kind of serious thoughts across.
Right. Hell yeah.
Like a lot of people like to talk all the time and they don't have much to say. And so when the quiet person talks, it has a little more, resonates deeper because it's somebody who doesn't really talk a whole lot. So it must be important if they're breaking their silence.
Right. But absolutely. I am the one that talks all the time, so.
I don't know. I feel like I get pretty chatty on these, but, we are stimulating ourselves, so.
Right, exactly. We're chatty Cathys.
Yes. So, I don't know. Do you want to talk about, like, favorite bookstores? Or I've been to quite a few of the bookstores here in the Twin Cities area.
Yes. Well, Do you
want to start there? Do you want to...
You're more of a bookstore guy than I am, because I grew up in northern Minnesota, as everybody knows.
Yep.
And every hack tourist town has a bookstore. And they're the only good stores usually in the entire town. And they're usually, some of them are gift store, or they're like novelty shop / bookstores, and they have new books.
Yes.
And they're really more of a knick-knack shop than a bookstore. And some of those, you can find cool stuff there. Sometimes. We were down in southeastern Minnesota, and I can't remember the town or the bookstore name, but we happened to stop at it. And it was basically just a toy store. But they had a room, probably a 10 by 10 room, of nothing but rubber ducks. And the rubber ducks were all themed. And, you could get the fireman rubber duck or the golfer rubber duck. And, of course, I bought a bowling rubber duck. Could you get
the BDSM rubber duck?
They might have had that.
The lipstick lesbian duck?
I think they actually did have a lipstick lesbian duck.
Okay.
Because this store was like not necessarily entirely for children. It had like stuff for adults in it too. Like they had board games on one half of the store, and they had like Catan and more adult board games, and they had the little kiddie board games too.
Yeah.
So
some of those stores are kind of like the quasi head shops. I mean, now that weed's legal here, like you could just call it what it is. But sometimes you go into these stores and they'd have like the books, and then there would be like all the glass pipes and things, and you're like, okay. And then they'd have like aisles and aisles and aisles of incense, but they were still like a bookstore. So
yes,
I mean, that's more like, so with music, but.
I was going to say the record stores.
These like, I don't know, tourist trap bookstores, right? So the bookstore in Buffalo, it had that cafe in the back, and it was probably, again, the size of my garage, like a 1-car garage. And, like a regular, like the one bay thing in a strip mall kind of thing, right? Like on Main Street, like you go in, they've got the one. Sometimes they get a bigger store and they got the 2 bays, the 2 storefronts. But this is like a 1 storefront kind of thing. And they had a really small, like sci-fi section, and that's kind of what I judge most stores on is like, I guess the variety of like genres, and then if you're in sci-fi or if you're in fiction, kind of like how many Kurt Vonnegut books do you have, how many Neil Gaiman books do you have, how many Tolkien books do you have, if any, of all of those. So I feel like those kind of like tourist trap shops are kind of like the airport bookstores, where it's got all like the Oprah's Club, Reader's Digest, top New York Times, whatever, top 10 books. And it's these usually it's these women, and they'll go and they'll buy a book, and they're like, ooh, I wanted to read this one because Reese Witherspoon told me about it. And then they're the ones that sit on the beach and read this book that you could tell is like brand new. and it's mostly a fluffy book, right? And I don't want to like, if that's your kind of book that you like to read, that's awesome. I'm not trying to downplay that, but that's not the kind of bookstores that I like, you know. And I don't mind that bookstores have those books because people like those books, but it's kind of like the traveling middle-aged woman trying to be hip has a book, you know, and reads it on the beach for her Instagram.
Right. Yeah. They're selling, back in the day, it was Anne Rice novels. They'd have the Anne Rice novels and whatever the latest Stephen King was, and then the Oprah bestseller.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so those are not really my favorite. So the Buffalo bookstore, you can skip on that one. Skip that one. You know, and then, so one of my favorite bookstores in the Twin Cities is Uncle Hugo's. It's Uncle Hugo and Uncle Edgar's. So it's Uncle Hugo's sci-fi and Uncle Edgar's mystery. So they only do science fiction and mystery books. Well, their building got burned down and flooded in the George Floyd riots, and they recently reopened in a bigger space. I really like that because it's not full price. They're kind of like used books. I think they have some new books too, but they've got a good chunk of used books. And like the guy who runs it knows his stuff. Like he puts out a newsletter, not very frequently, but you know, like when he talks about things, you definitely know he knows what he's talking about, at least in terms of books and authors and things and stuff like that. So that's one of my favorite bookstores, local to me. And then right across the street is this new bookstore. I think it's newer, and it's called Moon Palace Books. And one of our friends said that Moon Palace Books was their favorite bookstore in the Twin Cities. And I was like, man, I've never been there. So I went there just this weekend to go check it out. And I went into the entryway, you know, and so at least here in Minnesota, I'm sure other places do this too. You've got the exterior door, then you're in a little like vestibule with Jill Goodacre, and then there's another door to get into the actual store, right?
Yeah, it's like a mud room.
Yeah, and
it's a vapor barrier, a weather barrier, really.
Yeah, it's the winter cold barrier, snow barrier. And on the exterior door, it said masks required for everybody, vaccinated or not. And I was like, well, okay, maybe they didn't take this down yet. And I got into the vestibule, and there's a big box of masks, and then another sign that said masks required for everybody. And I still didn't quite believe it. And so I peeked into the windows, and like, sure enough, everybody in there has a mask on. So I'm like, well, I guess, like, I'm here to check this place out. So I guess I'll put the mask on. So I put the mask on and go in, and it's like, man, they had like such a small section of everything. Like every section was small. They did have a used book section, but it was small. They had a fairly decent sized kids book section. They had, I think, 4 Neil Gaiman books. They had 3 Frank Herbert books, you know, Dune Messiah, and I think Children of Dune. And they had maybe 4 Kurt Vonnegut books. They had a whole shelf, top to bottom, dedicated to like George Floyd literature, books and things. And every book was full price on the back. So I guess like if you only want to shop where they agree with your social justice kind of ideals, then it would be a good place to shop. But as a bookstore, I have to give it like, I'd rather go to Barnes & Noble because at least they have a bigger selection if I'm paying full price for books, which...
I have a question, Nate.
Yes.
How can there be a full bookshelf of books about George Floyd? How is that possible?
You know, nobody likes capitalizing on tragedy like social justice warriors, I guess. I don't know if they were all George Floyd books, but you know how bookstores will do the usually it spines out, and then maybe they take like one shelf and do covers out, right? So they had apparently found 5 or 6 books about George Floyd.
That's crazy.
That they had facing out. So I say it's a full rack of George Floyd books. I'm sure it's a full rack of social justice warrior books.
Right. I'm guessing that they're, like you said, they're capitalizing on the George Floyd incident, and they're not really writing about George Floyd.
Yeah.
It's kind of, well, it's the way the world works.
It's probably like George Floyd and other instances of social injustice.
Right. Yeah, which that I probably would enjoy reading one of them. One of them is probably good.
Yeah, pick one that has the best reviews and give that a try.
Right.
But yeah, so I was a little underwhelmed, and I was a little like, masks required for everybody still?
Mm-hmm. Dude, that's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
There's growing evidence that they're going to try to push masks and lockdowns again this year.
I have no idea why.
Well, I think that certain people made a lot of money on that.
I mean, I know why, but I don't know how they could possibly justify it.
Either do I, but they will.
Because and this could be a topic for a different episode. Because I'm sure you finished the book, and I'm still reading the book that we're talking about. Mike and I know what we're talking about. I hope, Mike.
Yes. I'm going to do it again before. Just tell me like when you're halfway or something.
Yeah.
So I can read it again.
But like as soon as the vaccine came out and was available for everybody to go get for free, I was pretty much done. I was done wearing a mask. I was like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm vaccinated. Like, fuck you guys, And whatever the science of the vaccine and all that stuff, like that's not the point. The point is like once people could feel safe about the thing, about COVID, like I don't need to do the mask anymore, and then all the other stuff that's come out recently. But that we're talking about bookstores. But yeah, I was a little like upset about the whole mask thing in the bookstore because even my doctor's office now doesn't require masks. So I'm going to the doctor's office. They don't make me wear a mask. I go to I'm just going to call it what it is, a left-wing bookstore, and it's all like mask up or you can't come look at our overpriced books.
Right. When I go to a bookstore, I want like Black's Books. I don't know if you ever saw that TV show.
No.
It's a British TV show with Dylan Moran.
Okay.
And TLDR, it's an alcoholic Irish guy who does not want to sell anybody books but owns a bookstore.
Nice. I want the Corianders bookstore from Neverending Story.
I need to watch that movie.
Yeah,
I watched it when I was a kid, and I don't recall anything from it.
If you haven't seen the German cut, you have to watch that too. But you should watch the American version first. It's not drastically different, but the tone is kind of drastically different.
Okay, is the German cut darker?
There's more sauerkraut, interestingly enough, but
right on.
No. So just in quick summation, the director, I think Wolfgang Peterson, made his cut of the film, and it was all done with a composer, true score, everything. And there's a really nice scene with I'll not to get super nerdy and have people like eyes roll back in their head. There's the black wolf thing that chases the main character. There's a scene that provides way more into that creature's backstory that really like threw me for a loop in a good way. Like, and I've read the novel too, so. But and then when it came over to America, they stripped all of the original score out of it, and they did the synth pop score through everything, and they cut some scenes and trimmed some stuff. So it's not less fun. Like the German version isn't less fun, but it's less like blatantly in your face 80s poppy. You know what I mean?
Sure. So it's like 1984 Doom without all the 80s magic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a serious film almost.
Yeah. Something that could stand up to the test of time.
Yeah, I mean the original, the American one does too because it's a great movie. But yeah. So I talked about Moon Palace Books. Speaking about kind of left wing bookstores, there's another bookstore, and it's small too. It's small, but it's called the Irreverent Bookworm, and they're very left wing, at least on their social media pages and stuff, which is fine. Like I don't really care. It's not a big deal. But they've got. It's funny because like you go in there and they kind of live up to their name. So their history section is called like a bunch of boring things written by rich white men. And that's their history section. So it's tongue in cheek, but they curate their books because they've got a small space. And so their books, they've got a lot of like staff recommendations, and most of the books in there kind of have kind of like things. And so I think they only sell things that they kind of like stand behind, I guess. You're still kind of paying full price, but at least it's a curated like niche bookstore, right? You're not going to go in there and get the rows and rows and rows of romance novels with the nipply men.
Yeah, you're getting the book buying experience along with a book potentially.
Yeah, and it's curated, right? So they've got limited shelf space. So the stuff that's in there is stuff they want to sell or they want people to read.
Right.
So that one I kind of like just for the experience. I don't think I've ever bought anything from them, but it was fun to kind of go in and look and see kind of their cheeky like section titles or section headers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's fine. There's another one, and I didn't buy anything from it, but it's called Wild Rumpus. and they have cats and chickens and stuff in the store. And the cats that they have are they're like these tailless cats that have kind of a demeanor of a dog. So you can like pet them and you can like, but it's a bookstore for young readers is what they build themselves as. So it's a lot of fun, and they've got a big door and like a small door, for kids and stuff. So that one's pretty good.
That does not sound chickens. Do they?
It's not like gross like you think it is.
Okay.
Like it's fine. It's good. I need to bring my daughter there. She would love it.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And then Paperback Exchange is pretty good. It's a used bookstore. Their prices are a little higher than I would like for a used bookstore. The interesting thing with Paperback Exchange is they've got a whole conspiracy theory wall of conspiracy theory books. And that's what they call them. And it's got the UFOs and it's got like the Sam Squanches, the Sasquatches, stuff like that. So like it's the only bookstore I've seen that has like a full on like conspiracy theory dedicated section.
I probably would like to go there. I don't think I'd buy a conspiracy theory book, but I'd like to see all of them.
Yeah. Well, we can go sometime, dude.
Yeah. We'll have to go.
Yeah. So I said like Uncle Hugo's is really good. There was one that we went to. It might have been this one, the Book House. It's in Dinkytown, and it was good. It was it's one of those bookstores where nothing is really laid out. I mean, it's laid out. They've got their sections, but their section signs are kind of hard to see. So it's kind of like you're kind of just kind of wandering around in this place. It's like one of those wandering bookstores. It's not like, okay, I want to go to the fiction, or I want to go to the nonfiction, or I want to go to the history, or I want to go to, pre-World War II Middle Eastern politics or something. Like, you're not going to those sections. It's kind of more of a wandering one, and that one was fine. I don't think I might have bought something there, but I don't know. That's kind of it for the bookstores I've been to. Oh, wait, there's one more. But I actually like. It is Majors and Quinn, and it's right in Uptown. And it's pretty good, and that's a large bookstore. So they've got a lot of stuff, but it's not used stuff. So I don't know if I bought anything from them either. But it's one of those places that's fun to look around because it's so big.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm so terrible with remembering the names of bookstores. I know that there's a bookstore that Sarah likes to stop at when we're in the area by BIR, and it's all used books. And it's a lot of romance novels. A lot of romance novels.
Okay, I know the one you're talking about. I think I've been there.
Yes. But the one thing that stands out is that on the outside of the building and inside, there's military propaganda posters everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that.
Emily's Books?
Yes, it is
okay.
Emily's Books. Yeah. And then there's another bookstore farther up the road over by like the junk stores, you know what I'm talking about? Like they have like bicycles out in the middle of the yard, but back there's a bookstore as well.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Emily's
is that
used
second
books.
Time around?
Yeah, I think so.
Because that's a thrift store, but I know there's like they've got
yes,
books, I think too.
They have a major book section from what I understand. I've never been in there. Sarah was, touring the area and she went in there. But I went to Emily's
I was only in Emily's once, and it was like you said, it was all this romance stuff, so I kind of lost interest pretty quick.
Well, they have, if you go way into the back corner, they have a sci-fi section. And we actually bought 2 grocery bags full of books for like $80. Yeah. It was really, really reasonable. And I got a Dune book there. It was House Harkonnen. Nice. Yeah. So they had good books, but you had to find them,
The Hennepin County Libraries used to do, before the pandemic anyway, these book sales. And you go in and the books would be like 25 cents. You could fill like a grocery bag, a paper grocery bag for like $5. Yeah. And I bought a lot of books from that, but I don't know if they still do them. I'll have to check their websites, but
I bet you they do, because my mother goes to those sales. She'll travel around and go to the quarter bag, like for a quarter you fill a bag.
Yep.
And
yeah, those are good. I don't know how often like you're in the Brainerd area, but that Cattails one is pretty interesting. I haven't spent much time in there.
Yes, it is interesting. We talked about that because it's memorable because it's downtown historic Brainerd, which is not bad anymore. They have like sidewalks, interesting sidewalk paintings and everything, but it's like some new books and a huge used section. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. I get a lot of Star Trek. I have in the past got a lot of Star Trek and Star Wars books there.
Okay, I'll have to check
And
that
they
place
have,
out again.
Yeah.
One of my friends I've done some film stuff with. He's a theater person up in the Brainerd Lakes area, a bit north of there. But he wrote a book with his partner, which I haven't read yet. But he only sold it at Cattail, so I ran in there and picked it up. It was like $5 for this book or whatever. But
yeah,
just to support him. But they do
pretty reasonable.
I think they do that where they do kind of like they'll sell local authors even if it's like spiral bound.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I remember there were like crystals and like weird hippie shit in there.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff in there for sure.
Yeah, there's like weird stuff. It's very it's interesting to walk around in. It's memorable, especially because the Annie's bookstore is like this, got right-wing propaganda everywhere. It's like the polar opposite in the same area, you know. But it's hilarious. But yeah, I like buying used books, especially when it's like a Star Trek or Star Wars story, because they're so quick, you know. You can read a Star Wars novel in 2 hours. For sure. Yeah. You know, it's like some of them are 2, some of them are 4.
Yeah, I do enjoy half price books, and they've got a lot of locations in the cities, and they're nationwide.
Yeah, Sarah is a big fan.
Okay. Sometimes, though, like, it depends. If you're looking for specific things, sometimes it's a little more expensive than you would think it should be. And so if it's a book that I really want, but I don't really want to pay $15 for it when I can get it for $3 off of eBay with free shipping, you know?
Right.
Then I'll just get it off of eBay. I did one of the Dune books that I bought in the main 8 series. I don't know if I told you this, Mike, but it was one of them. It wasn't God Emperor of Dune because that would have been too perfect because of the cover of that book. But it was one of the later ones, and I bought it from eBay. And so I picked it up to start it. And I was like, oh, because it's a paperback. And I'm like, there's something in here. So I flipped it open. And it was like this shitty digital picture that was printed out, right, on just like cardstock almost. And you could tell it was kind of like one of the earlier, like, not the earliest, but still like an earlier digital photo. And it's this old guy laying on this bed with a raging fucking boner. And I'm like, gross. But also, like, you're reading Dune, and Dune, like, that's where you put your pornography of, like, your boyfriend or whatever. So that was bizarre.
That was a little gift from them to you.
Yeah. Yes. Love it.
Love it. Love it.
Anyway, so if we move a little bit further outside, my brother lives near Stevens Point, Wisconsin. My one brother does. And in Stevens Point, there's one of the best used bookstores. It's like every time I go and visit him, I'm like, we gotta go. And he loves it too. And we gotta go. And it's Blue Moon Books. And this guy does not work for a union, because if you make one wrong move in this store, you will be crushed by tons of books. You will die. You will just die. I don't know if he doesn't keep up on his electricity bill or if he just can't afford to put more lights in, but he has like flashlights staged around the thing. It's like a full-on like house. Like imagine he bought this house and he converted it into a bookstore, and it's huge and it's massive. And there's been times that we've gone in there and like one of the lamps that he had in the back had like got knocked over and there's like broken glass on the floor and stuff. And his organization upsets me. But his prices are phenomenal, and he has like everything of everything you could ever possibly hope to have.
That sounds like a store that you could spend a lot of time in.
You can. So he's got like, it's really weird because he's got 2 sci-fi sections, which are separated by like a hallway. One's in a separate room, but the alphabetizing happens in both sections. So the one section right by the register is like A to Z. And then the other sci-fi section is A to Z, but it could have some of the same books in the other section as the other section, but they're all used books. And then some of the stuff, he's got like fiction and then like mystery. So if you want Michael Crichton books, they're in both of those sections. So you just kind of have to bounce back and forth between those sections to find the books. So it's a little like frustrating that way. But if you have the time and if you're not wearing a backpack and you're feeling like thin that day, you can go and like look at all of these books. But it's, if you have OCD or if you get kind of like thrown by chaos. It's not really a place for you, but it's one of my favorite bookstores because it's like it is an experience to go there because all of his shelves are bowing, under the weight of these books, and he's got books in the front, and you pull a book out and you're like, oh, there's another row of books behind this one, and it's somehow kind of alphabetized, and then you pull that book out and there's like a third row behind that row deep in these shelves. So
oh wow,
it's amazing because of all of the books that he has, and you can totally find, like, it'll take you some time, but the other thing is cool is you can ask him. You just be like, hey, I'm looking for this book, and he'd be like, oh yeah, let me check. So he's got on his computer, he's got all the books that he has, and he somehow like plugs them in so he can go and find it for you. But if you're trying to find it on your own, it's going to take you a lot longer.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite ones of all time because it doesn't.
That's memorable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I love Uncle Hugo's, but they only do sci-fi and mystery. And so this one does. They've got a big sci-fi section, but they've got a huge nonfiction section, and they've got all like the car books and the whatever books and, hobby books and things like that too. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We were on vacation up in the Arrowhead, and near Grand Marais, they have these little roadside shops, and they're junk stores. They sell everything from paddles to tea sets. Have you ever been up there?
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah. So you drive up Highway 61. You drive up Highway 61, and it'll be like a wide spot in the road. And there's one just south of Grand Marais that has books. And we were on vacation, and we had limited space, and we still bought a grocery bag full of sci-fi books because they had a bunch of Star Trek books that I had not read. And I bought a grocery bag of Star Trek books at this roadside. It looks like a junk store because it has like picnic tables lined up with like just garbage on it, And then you go into the building and they have books, used books for nothing, Yeah. I think I spent like, I don't know, 75 cents a book or something like that.
Yeah, that's good.
It was too good of a deal. So if anybody's ever up in that area, I guess it's worth a stop at these like very shifty looking roadside businesses that take cash only.
Yep.
But
and then a bookstore that's then my other brother lives in Connecticut, and it's a couple hour drive from him, so I'm not sure if it's in Connecticut or where it's in. But it's called the Book Barn, and they used to have, I think, like I was out there maybe 4 years ago, I think, and they had like 5 or 6 different locations, and the one location is a barn or a series of barns on this property, and you go there, and it's not air conditioned at all. But they've got a barn for like sci-fi. They've got a barn for history. They've got a barn for biographies. They've got in the biography section, they've got presidential biographies, other biographies, broken subcategorically. So I bought, and then they've got like a kid's book and modern newer books, like downtown, and you have to go, you have to hop to all these different places. But my brother said they kind of condensed their locations a little bit since the pandemic, but phenomenal place and dirt cheap prices because they're all used books or whatever.
Sure.
And I flew out, so I had to I had to take the train back from my brother's and then get into New York City and then get to the airport with my suitcase full of books and then on a plane and back and stuff. But that was fine. And then when we were in New York this last year, I went to the Strand, which I guess is one of the famous bookstores in New York, and it was amazing. Sarah had a bit of a meltdown, like mental crisis in there, because it was like packed with people, but it's all like people you don't have to talk to. Like I'm an introvert, so
right.
But like all these book people, and they go there and they have a coffee shop in the back. Some of their prices were like full price, and some of their prices were better than eBay prices on these books. And I think they're all like brand new books. And I bought like a really thick book, which was dumb, but I did because I had never seen it anywhere else. And it was one I wanted to read. And it was cheaper than the eBay one that I was watching on eBay. And I was like, I got to buy it. And I bought some stickers and stuff because like it was a cool place, New York City. But
oh, sure. Yeah. I'm over halfway done with this cigar, by the way. I'm not sure where you're at.
I'm about halfway.
Okay. When I first lit it up, it was light. And I thought, no, is this going to be like a light flavored cigar. Not oh no, but typically if we do 2 shows, I try to do the darker cigar first or second, and the lighter cigar first.
Yes.
This is not spicy, but it is a full bodied cigar for sure.
Full bodied. The first quarter wasn't. It was fine. It's getting better, I think.
I like it. I like that middle section. I like it right now too.
Oh, I like the middle section. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But like with you, like the first bit wasn't. I was kind of like, okay,
yeah, it's building.
It's come into its own. Yeah, building.
Yeah, it's building. I really like it so far. I feel bad that I poo-pooed how it looked.
Mike, looks aren't everything. Don't judge a book by its cover or a cigar by its wrapper.
Yeah, calling it The Banker is definitely appropriate because it's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
I like it.
I could definitely smoke one reading a book.
Yes. Working on an Excel spreadsheet. I could read one or eat one.
Oh, yes.
Smoke one. Fuck. Eat. Jesus Christ. And I've been digging the V-cut. So that's 2 cigars in a row I've done V-cut. Because even when I'm with you, I usually only do 1 cigar V-cut. And then I just use my straight cut. So.
Yep. I cross-cut this one. And good choice. Yeah, good choice. A lot of airflow. But so I don't remember the names of these bookstores like you do. I remember where they're located.
Yeah.
So, and most of them are part bookstore, part junk store. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the used bookstores. Like Bacchus has one. Pretty much every tourist town in the northern half of the state has a used bookstore as a part of their antique shop, you know?
Yeah.
And the antiques are always 3 times what they're supposed to be, and the books are always reasonable because nobody is buying books at these stores for the most part.
Yeah, so Sarah loves to go to Taylor's Falls because there's the Taylor Falls bead store there. And the upper level is all like jewelry stuff and beads and stones and gems and clasps and whatever the charms and stuff. But if you go in the basement, they have like a full-blown antique store in the basement that has books and vinyl and like other stuff too. So
I knew that store was there and we wanted to go because we hiked the park.
Okay, yeah.
But the day we went, it was closed because it was during 2021 winter and nothing was open in Taylor's Falls for obvious reasons. Mysterious, I'm sure, to some people. But the park was packed. We could barely get parking. So everybody was like obviously out and about and trying to enjoy themselves. And
and
we walked the whole town.
It's worth a stop.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll go back to Taylor's Falls. It's a lovely place.
And that bead store has a really good selection of incense as well, if you're into incense at all.
Yeah, we have incense occasionally. We have I don't know if I've showed you, but we got a grandfather clock at an antique store that has a service record, believe it or not.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And the inside of it is like shelving. And inside of the shelving, we have all of our smelly stuff, you know, candles and incense and things.
Well, if it's one thing Mike loves more than bowling, it's a watch. And if it's one thing Mike likes more than a giant watch, it's a giant watch with a service record.
Hell yeah. No,
dude.
When I saw it had a service record, it had to come in. It had to come into the house. Like, not only does it work, it has a service record, and it was just serviced right before it got put in the store. So,
yep. Yeah, I kind of wonder about like the service record stuff because I know when you go to like sell your car, if you have a service record of things, you can maybe get more money for it or something. But I feel like ever since the Cash for Clunkers, like there's not really a used car market like there used to be.
No, there's not. It's crazy. Drive around and not a lot of really bad, crappy vehicles on the road anymore.
That's
and
why
if they are,
my
they're
own
real
repairs
bad.
On mine to keep a bad, crappy car on the road.
Right. Well, yours wouldn't have qualified anyway. Gas mileage is too high.
Yeah.
Gas mileage is too high. My mom wanted to sell her Explorer for that program, and it was too new. She was so mad. So.
Yeah, I wanted to say, full disclosure, Mike, I pulled up a list on Google of all the bookstores in the Twin Cities here, and then I remembered the names, that way.
You cheating so-and-so.
I mean, I remember. So I didn't have to look up Book Barn, and I didn't have to look up Blue Moon Books in Stevens Point. And I didn't have to look up Uncle Edgar's and Uncle Hugo's, like my favorites. But that one, that Major and whatever one, like that was a pretty decent bookstore. But I would not have remembered the name. I know where it is, but I wouldn't have remembered the name.
Right. Yeah, and I'm like, most of my bookstore experiences are like, oh, we're gonna tool around in Cloquet. Oh, let's stop by this store, and they happen to have used books. Or Duluth, tooling around Duluth, and you go into the antique shop and they have a book section. Like, oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Let's wander over there. And those are, then it's hit and miss. Let's put it that way. Hit and miss.
Yeah, for sure. I think in terms of things that I enjoy about bookstores, in any bookstores, I just like the library look. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I like physical media. So like your patio where we go and smoke and do the podcast sometimes, and where you're doing the podcast tonight, like your bookshelves, like I just love that look of like, here's a whole bunch of books, and you can kind of like look over there and, oh, that looks like an interesting one, or, oh yeah, I read that one, or, oh, I want to read that one, and kind of the same for me with like DVDs, and we've got the big vinyl collection, and that's neat too, to just have like, you can kind of browse.
Yep, absolutely.
Versus the streaming. I mean, you browse on you can browse on like Netflix and the other things too, but there's something about browsing like tactile, like I can flip through records, or I can like scan the spines of the books.
There's something about physical media that you just can't replicate with a screen. And when people come over here who have never been here, I get weird reactions sometimes.
Okay.
I'm not going to mention their name. I don't even remember who it was. It was somebody that Sarah and I both knew that hadn't been over.
Yeah.
And they looked at the wall and they're like, oh, you guys are readers, huh? And I'm like, okay. Apparently it's not normal to have a book wall in the house anymore.
Probably not for our generation, really.
I guess so. I mean,
or our generation or younger. I mean, I feel like our generation, some people are and some people aren't. But you go younger, and a lot of people are like, I haven't picked up a book since like high school.
Right. Oh, I have an acquaintance, let's say, somebody I spent a lot of time with, who is almost proud of the fact that they have never read a book cover to cover. Yeah. It's like, you are almost 50 fucking years old and you've never read a book? Like, really?
Yeah.
And he's a nice person, right? And all that. Yeah. It's like, how can you be proud of the fact that you've never read a book? How can you seriously think that you're making accurate decisions about things?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I don't even care if it's, fiction or nonfiction. Reading expands your comprehension of things, even if it's not like, you can read Dune and still expand your comprehension of things,
Right. It increases, it's like exercise for your brain.
Yes.
So I know there's a lot of studies about that reading is good for the mind.
Yes, indeed. And good for the soul, if we have one.
Oh, something like that. Especially if you read things that are both interesting and insightful,
Yeah. And I think, I enjoy, and, not all books are created the same, and just because it's a book doesn't mean it's true. You know what I mean? But I enjoy. So I went and we've talked about this before, because it was one of our first season episodes was a period in history that we really enjoy, and mine's Lewis and Clark. And so I loved being able to research and find the best written books and the most interestingly written books on Lewis and Clark, and then being able to read those books, all kind of back to back to back to get kind of a complete picture of the expedition. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff on it because it was not in modern. Oh, yeah. It was the modern era, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have pictures from it, but damn near.
Yeah. But that's the cool thing about books is like there are so many different historians and authors out there who enjoy certain things. And if you stumble across something in a book or get recommended a book and you discover a topic you weren't aware of that you're super into, there's a ton of books on that topic. They're not all going to be good or well written or well researched, but some of them will be. And you can like really expand your knowledge on something to be more than just the cursory, I know what happened.
Right. Yeah. And well, you know this. The internet does not have everything on it quite yet. So I have an old...
Well, if you know where to look, it has most things. I mean, it has the circumcision book, the history of circumcision.
All right. It has a lot of relevant information, but if you have old machinery, the good old guidebooks that they used to sell in every auto parts store are still your best resource.
The Hayes.
The Hayes. Yeah. I bought a Hayes for my four-wheeler because it's like a 99 Polaris 325 Magnum, which is, they don't have repair videos on that four-wheeler. It's too old.
Yeah.
Even though it's a classic. Apparently it's worth money because it's in very good condition, but it just needs a plow as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I had to buy a Hayes manual to fix it.
Yep.
Which is fine. Yeah. And then any sort of, so I still have a lot of books from trade school and from college too.
Yeah.
And you're certainly not going to find American Jesus on the internet,
Yeah.
That's
I kept some college books, but I ended up getting rid of a lot of them because I had, I did film school and architecture, so I kept a couple. But a lot of them, I was just like, for filmmaking and stuff, the internet has more relevant information than any book ever, because by the time the book is published, the information is already out of date on some of that stuff. Just with the way technology is advancing with like digital filmmaking and stuff. If you're doing like 35 millimeter film or like the old school like filmmaking, like of course the books are going to be better, but something that's kind of like still trending or still advancing technologically, like the books are very hard pressed. Like you go to all these bookstores and they have like the C++ coding manual or like the JavaScript, and it's like, but it's from like 1998, and you're like, dude, no, that's so out of date.
Right.
Even if you want to get into JavaScript, that book will not help you because everything has changed so much since then.
Well, yeah, anything with technology. Anything with technology. I took a political science course, which granted this is like 15 years ago, about politics, like internet politics. And there was no course book. This was like brand new technology at the time or brand new trends. Yep. And it was all online research and online published research and stuff like that. So anything that's newer, obviously, it's going to be not in book format. And related to our podcast, like all the cigar and pipe information you'd ever want to know is on the internet. There's so much access to information now. As far as any hobby that people are actively doing.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between books and like internet articles or blogs or how-tos is that before the internet, you had to actually get somebody to pay to publish your book. So there had to be some level of professionalism or research if it was a nonfiction or whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, certainly they could gatekeep people out of there. Like Andy Weir released The Martian chapter by chapter on his blog, and everybody went crazy for it, and he got it published, and then a movie was made from it. So that was, different than the normal path, but that's the kind of level of writing that you would have to get your stuff published pre-internet.
Right. Yeah.
So like that's why Stephen Ambrose has so many books out, because the internet wasn't a thing when he was pumping out all that stuff,
No, and once you get your first success, you have access, right?
Yeah.
And Stephen Ambrose is very entertaining, not necessarily the most accurate. But that was a style of book that I guess it's still common, but it's not as common as it was, like the pop history.
Yeah.
Entertainment themed.
Yeah. And now with the internet, anyone can publish anything.
Right.
So with books, though, you still have to be careful, or you still have to be discriminatory. Right. Curate. You have to, so I didn't read every single book on Lewis and Clark.
Right.
I did research on which ones were the most accurate, which ones had the most interesting perspectives, which ones this and that, So you have to get third party input to see if the book you're about to read is actually accurate or not. Or if you can't verify it, you have to go in with a little bit of suspension of disbelief, or a little bit of, I don't know what you would call it, criticism, or like being willing to critically think.
Right.
And with the easy access to everything on the internet, you can easily access all this stuff that sounds really good, but isn't actually true.
Oh, there's a lot of what is it, cognitive bias, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot
so
more
much
stuff you have to. It's a lot more stuff you have to cut through on the internet versus a book. I mean, you still have to cut through things with books because some stuff is just written and is bad or it's wrong, like Dr. Spock. But I feel like the market wasn't as flooded with books because you actually had to print the books. Somebody had to pay to print the books and then to market the books, sell the books, people to read the books. And the internet kind of took that whole process out of it. Now all you have to do is write something, publish it, and people can read it. So,
yeah, anybody can say anything they want,
which is great, but it's also bad,
It is. It's kind of like the whole hucksterism on steroids. Like,
yeah,
we went to the craft fair and there was a guy selling spices, and the claim, he had like 6 or 7 kinds, and they were all good. But the claim of the original is this is a 100-year-old Norwegian family recipe for this spice blend, and you taste it, and it tastes like Lowry's. Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, I can put Lowry's in I can put Lowry's in a different container and tell you a story about that 100-year-old Norwegian blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, maybe Lowry's is a 100-year-old Norwegian recipe. I don't know.
Yeah, like I can say whatever I want as long as nobody's verifying.
Yeah, right? Nobody's looking too deep into it.
Right. Like I kept my AC and DC theory textbooks because, if I actually need to know the answer before something explodes, I'm not going to search the internet. That's.
Well, there's a whole trend now on the internet, too, of people giving what they know to be wrong advice just to see people like blow themselves up or
big time
like mess something up. And so it's like, I mean, I guess.
Big time. Well, when you were doing your thermostats and different things, I warned you about that because that is definitely with the trades. That's definitely a thing. Like, yeah, let's tell this guy to wire it this way, and that way he's going to have to rip his fucking walls out.
Yep.
It'll never work.
Well, I told you about that one guy when I had to get a lower amperage air compressor.
Yep.
And so I listed mine for sale, and I was like, yeah, the max amperage is the same as the breaker. And one guy messaged me, he's like, you could just put in a bigger breaker on that thing. Like in your breaker box. And I didn't even bother responding to it because you and I already talked about that. I have to change all the wires out here, to get the bigger amperage. So
unless you want to burn it down, that's a good way to do it.
Which I don't. So
yeah, and in the state of Minnesota,
you have to have a little bit of discretion.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
it's hilarious. More discretion with the internet than you do with books sometimes.
Oh yeah. This is a total aside, but when I was going to school, there was a guy who dropped out of the program, and he was ancient. I don't know why he thought he was going through the apprenticeship program. He was already retired. He's like in his 60s.
Yeah.
So he got pushed out for obvious reasons, right? You don't want a 60-year-old first-year apprentice or whatever. So he went over to the Home Depot, and he was running their electrical department. And so you go to these stores, and let's say you go to the plumbing section, and there's a plumbing expert at Home Depot. It's like, is that just a failed apprentice? Like, who is that guy? You know what? Maybe he was a licensed plumber. He wouldn't be in the freaking plumbing section giving you advice at Home Depot.
It's just Tim.
Yeah. Like, what?
One of my favorite stores doesn't have, they got books, but I would never buy a book there, is Micro Center. Because they got all the computer stuff I would need, even though now I mostly buy my computer stuff online because it's cheaper than there. But sometimes their stuff is really good and really cheap. And if I need it the same day or if I want to go pick it out myself, that's where I go. And they've got a bunch of 3D printing stuff, so I go there quite a bit. And I just like looking at all the technology. But one time I was looking for something, and they've got the people on the floor, right? And they're like, hey, what are you looking for? And I'm like, well, I'm looking for this. And he's like, okay, well, you want this one then. And they put their name sticker right on the thing, right? So they get the commission for the sale. Like, hey, I was helped by so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, but what about this? He's like, oh, no, that's not even a thing. Like, this is really what you want. And trust me, I know because I work here. And I'm like, dude, I just spent 6 hours researching this thing. And what you're telling me is false. And so I will not buy that. So, sometimes you got to realize that the people in the stores are not really experts on anything other than making a sale.
Oh, for sure. And I have one of my favorite things to do is to do the research before I go in. So I know what I want. And then I'll talk. They want to talk to you. So I'll talk to the clerk or whoever. I don't know anything. And I'm judging their level of knowledge about what I am specifically looking for.
Yes.
And I do it a lot at the electrical section of the,
yeah, for sure.
the stores that you go to, because these guys are, my name's Jim Bob and I am running this electrical and I'm the manager for the electrical department and blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking for, like I was in there looking for a battleship, which is like a little part that you add to a box for after putting boxes in walls that are already built. And he had no idea what a battleship was. I'm like, just show me where it is. And I described the part and he brought me there. Yeah. And it's like, how the fuck is this guy running this electrical department as the manager? He doesn't know about these parts that you need to do wiring in walls that are already up, Not that, I mean, again, they're not going to get like legitimate professionals in the HVAC department of your Menards. Unless they're a retiree, potentially, right?
I think you'll appreciate this. I saw a good meme, and it was like from a waiter, right? And the waiter was like, man, I love it when my table is like, well, this meal was phenomenal. You please give my compliments to the chef. And the waiter's like, what the chef doesn't know, or what the customer doesn't know, is the chef is just some guy, Chad, who's strung out on coke, and he's in high school. Like, he's not some chef. He's just the chef, like he's not, he's just some guy back there strung out on coke. Doesn't mean he knows how to, do all the stuff you would do in like a fancy, like New York thing. But the guy's like, but sure, I'll go tell him. Your compliments. There's some just overworked, underpaid guy back there,
Right. Yeah. Like I worked in restaurants, as you know, and it's like, the reason why it tastes so good is, number one, you did not make it. And number two,
salt.
It's got more salt and more fat and more sugar than you would ever put in anything that you made at home. Because they don't give a fuck. That's not their job. Caring is not their job.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah. Like,
we put in a whole pack of Costco butter in this dish. That's like 12 sticks of butter. Of course it's good. Yeah,
the refried beans taste so good because they put actual tubs of lard into it, Of course it's wonderful. And a pound of salt,
Yep.
So
talking about battleships and stuff, if I wanted to put, and this has nothing to do with bookstores, so for the listener, this is just a freebie. If I wanted to put a ceiling fan in a bedroom that only has a light right now, do I have to run a whole separate wire? Or do the ceiling fans have something where I can like just put a double switch in or something? Or how does that work?
So you have a light and it runs off a switch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You can take the light down. You have to inspect the box. If they put a box that is fan rated, you're good to go and you can mount it to that. Okay. If not, you need to take a look and see how the box is mounted. Because in order to run a ceiling fan, you have to have a ceiling box that's rated for fan use. Given the age of your house, probably not gonna happen. But you can modify that. There's ways, you can get aftermarket, or not aftermarket, but you can get boxes to where you can pull out the old one and put in a new one, especially if it's directly mounted to like a wood joist.
Okay.
If it's upstairs, you're going to have to potentially deal with insulation and pushing insulation around and things like that. It's not impossible by any means.
Yeah.
But you're going to want to make darn sure that the box that you have is going to be rated for it, because otherwise your ceiling fan will wobble and fall on whoever's standing underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so would you have to run a secondary wire?
No, you shouldn't have to. No.
Oh.
You're going to have to get a fan that's rated. The motor's going to have to be rated low enough for the circuit, but new fans have DC motors, and they're great. They're way better than you're thinking like the big AC motor fans. There might even be some fans that are light enough to where you could get by. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Depends on.
I was just thinking about sometimes the fan and the light are on separate switches.
Yeah.
But
you would have to.
The fans, you turn the thing on and you pull the chain, right? And it's either you can turn the light on, you can turn the fan on.
There's that. The new fans, what I'm thinking of is that they're not a smart fan. They're a DC fan, and they have a remote.
And they've got a little, okay.
Yeah, they have a remote that runs on battery. And they're pretty slick. And some of them might be light enough to where, if you have like a 35-pound rated box, you get away with mounting it, potentially.
Yeah. Does it just say on the box?
Yeah, you should be able to see it in the box, especially if you have a plastic box. You'd have to look at it. And I mean, if you have like a steel box up there and it's like sturdy,
yeah,
you're probably good to go. It all depends on what you have. You'd have to open it up and see, because your house has like a mixture of old and new
yeah, it does.
stuff, So modern box would be rated for 50 pounds or higher with like fan rating.
Okay.
Yeah. At least that's my, my knowledge of house fixtures and house components is very limited.
Yeah, well, a fan would be like a live load.
Yeah, like I say, you'd get like the new DC fans are so efficient. It's just like LED lights,
Okay.
You don't even do lighting calculations anymore, from what I understand.
Yeah, the lights are crazy. I replaced all the lights in the basement because remember it was flickering.
Mm-hmm.
I bought these like superior dimmability ones, but they're pretty cheap still, and they're all LED, But yeah, it's like I remember when you would buy the incandescents, and you'd have to be like, okay, I'm replacing a 60, so I have to get a 60. I can't go up to 100 because it'll blow or it won't light or it won't be bright. But with the LEDs, it's like, yeah, you could get however many lumens, and it draws like 6 watts or something,
Yep. Yeah, LEDs changed the game, and DC motors and stuff have changed the game. And a lot of the new houses are not even running AC power for lighting. They're running them all in DC circuits from the get-go.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they're using like Cat 5 cable, glorified Cat 5 cable.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Within the industry, electricians are like, oh, they're going to run us out of business, blah, blah, blah. It's like, nah, dude, you just have to learn how to do this new thing. That's all. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
So it's
it's
entertaining.
No matter how easy things get, people still won't do them and will want to pay somebody else to do them for them. So.
All right. My cigar went out with like an inch and a half left.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to relight it. Yeah, I was trying to relight it.
But yeah, I'm just
I
think I got about an inch and a half left. I'm probably right there with you.
Yep. I can't remember. Your light fixtures are old, aren't they? The overheads.
I don't know. I feel like all the light fixtures are the contractor special because it was bank owned, and then the contractors came in. They put in the tan carpet. That's the contractor special carpet.
Sure.
And they put in the contractor special boob light in every room. So
you might get lucky. You might have gotten lucky, and they might have already put in good boxes.
Yeah. So they, I know they redid everything outside of that room in the basement with the electrical box in it, the breaker box in it.
Yep.
Because that was the only room of the house that has 2-prong outlets with no ground. But everything else is grounded. So I feel like everything else should be up to code.
Right.
But I'd have to take one down and see. But yeah, we were just talking because it's been so hot this summer. And we have a little fan in our bedroom, but it'd be nice to have a ceiling fan because it's much more efficient moving of the air,
Oh, sure. Yeah,
you can reverse it for winter to get better heating. So.
Yep. Yeah, those are the DC fans. Those are pretty slick. I'm thinking about getting 2 for my smoking room here.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my friends, they have there's a fan that you can screw into a light socket. And that's what they put in their garage when the garage was too hot.
Sure.
And it has a light on it, but it also has a fan on it, and it just runs off the light socket. So I was like, because you helped me, and we capped because our garage had a 1 bulb in it, and then I bought the 2 LEDs strips.
Yep.
To get more light in here, but that box is still there, so I could put I could just convert it back to a light fixture and put a little fan up there too if I wanted.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So.
Heck yeah. Yeah, the sky's the limit. You just have to work with what you have to an extent and be willing to modify.
Yeah, and be smart and make sure the power is off and use the tester to make sure the power is off.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. With your fan switching and stuff like that, it's pretty easy to tell if it's off.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yes, indeed. Well, I don't know that I have anything else bookstore related.
No, I don't. Like I say, I like used bookstores, and if you're in tourist country, these antique shops, a lot of them have book sections. Yes. And or the antique stores will have books randomly shoved in because they'll have like, this section is cellar 123. They'll have like
the consignment stalls or whatever.
Yeah. They'll have like bookshelves in there. Some of those are pretty good.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Yep.
But I don't get to go to fancy bookstores in New York, Nate.
You could if you would just come with me.
I know. I could.
I think one season we should do like nice ashes on the road, and we should just go to different places for every episode.
Well, yeah, when the show takes off.
After we get our yacht, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
After we get our yacht. This week, nice ashes in Milan. Next week, nice ashes in Thailand.
Oh, man. Thailand.
The week after that, nice ashes in Jamaica, man.
Oh, geez. Live from wherever.
Yeah.
Melbourne.
It would be fun to go talk to some of these cigar lounges and see if they would let us do a podcast there,
Yeah, it'd be interesting. They probably would.
Yeah,
they would.
They would care.
Yeah, they wouldn't give a shit.
as long as we bought some cigars,
Yeah, we'd have to buy the sticks there.
Shout out. Yeah, gave them enough of a shout out, but that'd be kind of fun on location.
So I have like an inch and a quarter left, and it's starting to get sour on me.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of like, I don't have anything else to say. And it was really good up until about now.
It's still good, but it's got that bitterness that
it's got that bitterness. And, it was the Gurkhas that we ran into that with almost every stick.
Mm-hmm. So this isn't as bad as a Gurkha as far as bitterness.
But it's to be expected on some of these sticks. So
yeah. You can't have that full body flavor and expect it to be like great when you get to the last inch on a 6-inch long cigar,
Yeah. So with the other H. Upmanns, which one has been your favorite so far?
The Banker. I liked this one. Yeah.
I like the Banker, and I think like the Cameroon Reserve was really good.
It was good. Yeah. I like this one.
Yeah, this one's really good.
So nice and round and full bodied. I was really surprised.
Yep. Yeah, it was a little, like you said, it was a little kind of underwhelming maybe at the first couple of puffs, but it didn't waste any time.
No, it definitely showed up. So definitely a thumbs up from me.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Be safe. Have fun.